How are we doing today, everybody? I am a pro wrestling fan. Sure, that's the intro. I have seen many people talk about the facts of pro wrestling, talk about like what should or shouldn't be happening, or talk about like the current state of pro wrestling. But I rarely have seen people talk about the impact of pro wrestling, whether it's just the impact on them or the impact of the world on the world at large, or even the impact within the characters themselves. And because of that, I have a lot of thoughts about pro wrestling, and some of them are so complicated that I have difficulty explaining them. But one of the easiest ways to organize my thoughts is not only just to write them down, but to also make a video yelling at people. There's going to be a specific order of how I'm going to post these videos, mainly because I want there to be like a very solid understanding of what my understanding of pro wrestling is, because this channel is not an objective channel. This channel is communicating my interpretation of pro wrestling. There's going to be a lot of facts within this. There are going to be a lot of things that have to be factual. However, at the end of the day, I put so much of my interpretation on these stories to the point where I feel like a co-writer. So, what is pro wrestling? A lot of people believe it to be a sport. A lot of people believe it to be nothing more than, just a bunch of people jumping around and having fun. However, the answer is not only much deeper than you originally thought, but it's also kind of more ridiculous than you originally thought. Pro wrestling as an art form actually combines like multiple art forms into one. There's like traditional acting, improvisational acting, non-verbal acting, which is very important and a lot more important than a lot of people make it out to be. An immense amount of strength and oftentimes like even like flexibility and dexterity to be a pro wrestler, mainly because some of those moves aren't easy. It's definitely incentive to have like acrobatic training if you want to be a pro wrestler. Also, like some sort of martial arts background is very good in terms of being a good pro wrestler, because one thing that helps you be a good pro wrestler is to be a believable pro wrestler. There are so many different individual ways in which those specific aspects can be showcased, not even just in a large promotion like WWE or AEW, but even in more independent promotions like like an early Ring of Honor or like GCW, something like that. Because like traditional acting, those are more the times when there are specific things that need to happen, specific things that characters need to say, stuff like that. Maybe even like if time is designated for a specific character after a match, sometimes that'll be to just like let the character speak however they want to speak. Other times that is because they want the character to say something very specific in reference to either the match that just happened or a match that is going to happen. Just that alone puts in traditional acting and improvisational acting. Improv acting has a couple more use cases, because there is something called a promo battle, trying to insult each other in ways to basically make the fight more interesting in story. The point isn't often to even make a point. Sometimes the point is just to be a dick. Pro wrestling, in addition to all of these things, is fake. Now, don't shoot me. So many people view and talk about wrestling as if it is a real sport, and it is not. It is an industry, just like the theater industry is an industry in and of itself, completely independent from the movie industry, right? Like, it is it's self-contained, right? It's self-contained. There are people who can navigate through those different industries. However, that does not mean that these industries are the same thing, right? And that's the same with pro wrestling. Not only are there people who have moved through the acting side of pro wrestling, such as The Rock, Hulk Hogan, John Cena, But there are also people who move through the sports side of pro wrestling, such as Brock Lesnar, Satoru Sayama, like a bunch of people who we'll all eventually talk about probably. All of this to say that pro wrestling at its core is theater. It is a very unique form of theater, even unique within the idea of theater itself, but it is theater nonetheless. We can talk about how it is able to interact beyond the fourth wall. Now, for many people who have never heard of the term like breaking the fourth wall or anything along those lines, it is meant to talk about like TV shows and movies where one of the characters will look directly at the camera and basically address the audience directly in some way. The reason why it's called breaking the fourth wall is because, say, like in a standard sitcom show, right, you are likely going to see three walls in the shot at any point in time, and the fourth wall is where the cameras are, right? They're almost directly behind that fourth wall. So to like even interact with that fourth wall in any way, especially to look directly at the camera, would be breaking that fourth wall and then reaching to the camera behind it, right? So if you as a performer want to try and go beyond breaking the fourth wall, one of the major ways to do that is not only just to see the audience, to have them be there, and not even just to interact with the audience directly, but also to have the audience affect you in some way. One of the best examples that could actually be given is Roman Reigns, Tetsuya Naito, The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. These are all really good examples of the influence of an audience. Emphasis needs to be put on the fact that the influence of this audience is almost always organic. Because the same way an audience can smell bullshit from a company can smell bullshit from an audience. And so when you have those moments where it almost feels like you're able to be a part of the story, it makes it a bit more special. However, unfortunately, as time has gone along, many people have seen that thing that should be viewed as like more of an honor, and they have sort of taken it as their right. And it's not only is it really interesting to see, but it's really sad to see, because this unfortunately isn't a problem that's exclusive to pro wrestling. I've seen it in the comic book community. I've seen it definitely in the anime community, right? And Lord knows, like the book community. I've heard stuff. I don't read. I watch pro wrestling. You think I read? I think pro wrestling is at its best when the audience is an audience, and in being an audience, they almost become a one collective character in the story. Yeah, man, pro wrestling's cool.